Welcome to the Middlesex Moments radio show. I'm Marlene Olson, standing in for Dr. Anna Wasesha. Today in the studio with me is John Shafer, Professor of Philosophy and Communications. Shafer is a full professor and senior faculty member at Middlesex, where he has taught since 1986. He divides his teaching load between courses in film and media. He currently serves as Program Coordinator of Communication Broadcast Cinema and is president of the Jonas Center for Earth and Art. So welcome to the show, John.
Thank you, Marlene. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. Also with us today is Rich Lenoce, Director of the Center for New Media. I've got to share with you one really fun fact about Rich, and that's his bio. So here we go. When he was 4 years old, Rich Lenoce was watching Looney Tunes and wondered how someone could put a rabbit, a duck, and a hunter with a gun into a box and not let them out. When he went behind the TV to free them, he saw there were no characters, just magical lights flashing. The light has never gone out, and now that light is shining in a new direction, namely radio. So, let's start there. Tell us about this new venture.
On January 28th, the Federal Communication Commission issued a construction permit to Middlesex Community College to build a radio station. It's something that has been at least 25 years in the making, John, because you started looking at it way back when, and then when I came in, I continued trying to get a radio station. So
there actually was a radio program of some sort that was down in the library here at Middlesex back in the 1960s. It was a long time ago. We've been doing research towards the 50th anniversary. I don't know if it was a pirate station or if it was one that had less than a quarter-mile listening audience, but there was like a little box that was down in the student lounge.
Well, actually, we had, I'm not sure about a library place, but I know that when I first came to Middlesex, we had a radio station set up and operated, but we were operating on this low-powered electric current system, which would broadcast essentially to the parking lot. So if you're sitting anywhere within the greater campus range, you could actually hear the radio station, and we also broadcast to the cafeteria and to certain places on campus. So it was actually a very active radio station. The students were really into it, and they had a club and everything, and it was at that time that we started trying to apply for a license, but unfortunately at that time there were no frequencies available for us, and we've been waiting for 25 years since that time to actually get one, and so we finally got one thanks to the efforts of Rich here.
Are there certain windows of time where these stations become available to the general public or available to be picked up?
Yes, the FCC, you just can't go any day and apply for an FM station. There are windows of opportunity that open, and they run for 30 or 90 days, and they say, okay, you can apply for an FM station now if you're an educational institution. The last time was like 12 years ago. And at that time, we were looking to have the antenna located here on campus. We knew this window, it's been a couple of years in the making, we knew this window was coming, so we had an engineering study redone, not at this campus, because we knew we weren't going to get one at other locations.
Should add, because we're up on a big hill here,
so
that if we put up an antenna, and we've always thought, well, we get great reception, but that's actually the problem, because we're so high that if we put an antenna up here and broadcast, we would go farther than we would be allowed to go.
Right,
so
we'd be bumping into other stations.
Right.
I got it. On that note, we're going to take a quick break and we welcome back. I'm Marlene Olson, and this is the Middlesex Moments radio show. And with me today is Rich Lenoce and John Shafer, and we've been talking about radio. And as we ended the last segment, we were talking about where we're going to locate the transmitter. And my understanding, it's going to be Portland. So why Portland?
Well, our studio will be located here, but when we hired an engineering firm to do a study of all the frequencies available and all the radio stations in the state and how they intersect, where is there a spot where you could put a radio station at a given frequency? And there was basically a 2 mile by 1 mile swatch of land that stretched from Cromwell near the seminary, Holy Apostle Seminary, across the river, which is useless. You can't put an antenna in a river. and went all the way to Portland, to the other side of the river, and ended right about the place where the Portland Drive-In is, and the baseball fields in Portland. So we looked at what public buildings were there, what public property, and there were two things. One was the baseball fields, and the other was the town garage. First, I contacted my counterpart at Portland High School, Krista Karch, who's the media instructor, who also runs a radio club there. And I said, hey, you have any interest in partnering with us in a radio station where we would have the transmitter in Portland? The station would be a Middlesex College station, but Portland High School could provide us with programming in return for the antenna on a Portland site. And
I imagine that garnered quite a bit of excitement.
It did. I mean, she's like, yes. And, and also, yeah, Portland doesn't have a radio station at all. And we are required by law, because we would be a radio station, to offer emergency services on there. You know, the emergency broadcast service, what used to be the emergency broadcast service.
That's going to be interesting.
So if there is a flood, for example, in Portland, which happens yearly when the rivers rise and streets are closed, people would be made aware of such things. When streets were closed, there were 2 storms back-to-back in a row 2 years ago, where many streets in Portland were closed. Power was out. Well, because of the location where we're going to be putting this antenna, it's fed by emergency generator. So when power goes out, people can turn to the radio and find information. So we're providing a community service to Middletown and a community service to Portland, as well as programming. So it really works for everybody.
So just staying on that emergency messages for just a moment, where would that information be gathered, and who would be responsible for getting that on the air?
Well, some of it, when it's a national emergency, some of it is directed nationally. All of a sudden, control gets taken over by the transmitter, and the information gets broadcast.
Automatically?
Automatically, yeah. And when it's statewide, state information gets broadcast automatically. When it's local, we would be in charge of that. So there could be a throw switch in Portland that would allow Portland or Middletown to be able to send out these emergency messages.
I had no idea it worked that way.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I believe if I'm correct, Rich, there's a special line, isn't that, that you have to hook up to your broadcast system that will feed in that information over. I think it's over phone lines, so that if if the power does go out, you still are able to transmit those emergency signals which go over phone
Is there
lines.
like a signal that this is about to occur? How would you know? Would you just then hear it coming over the radio and know that they had taken over?
Well, you've probably heard that.
Yes.
This is the emergency. That's what happens.
Well, not usually during a snowstorm, but yeah.
An electronic signal gets sent to the radio station, and it's overridden. The broadcast is overridden by that station. So
these are the really true emergency takeover type messages.
Yes.
This isn't, it's a snow day today and...
Oh, we'll be doing that too.
But you'll be doing that message.
We'll be doing that locally.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So, we'll have, this will be a true community radio station. So as well as emergencies, it'll also be community programming as well, which is, something as a community college we're be proud to offer.
There's so much that the community has to offer. There's so many different things going on. I can't imagine us not being able to fill that 24/7 timeline for a radio show. How do you decide programming?
Well, to tell you the truth, we haven't actually worked that all out yet. And that's, we're waiting to see if we actually got the radio station.
Of course.
And we have, an 18-month window where we're supposed to be constructing. We have to raise money for the station, and then we have to construct an antenna and get all the equipment ready for broadcast. So, which is actually not a lot of time. As a matter of fact, we're sitting here trying to figure out how we're going to be able to do this in 18 months. But in the meantime, then we can, at some point, we need to start talking about what kind of programming we want to have. We know that we want to have community-based, local programming, and we want to include educational components to it. We know that we want to do some partnering, at least with Portland, and Portland we've offered them to provide some time for the town to have information for the high school and high school students. We're considering possibly opening up opportunities for other high schools to provide information. So there's a number of possibilities, and certainly we want to provide avenues for educational information and courses that we would be feeding from our college too. But we're actually pretty open at this point and still in the planning stages.
So the timeline is, first of all, to get the license, pick a name, fundraise, get the tower built, and then in 18 months approximately, you could conceivably be ready to run your first show. Mm-hmm. Is that correct?
Yeah, within that window, yes.
All right. How would someone who's interested in helping out with this, maybe even someone who says, I think I've got a foundation that might be a good fit for making this happen, who would they contact here to make a donation or to start?
They could call me directly, and I'll work with President Wasesha and the foundation if they wish to donate to this venture. It's going to be expensive to build a tower. We're looking at between 130 and 150 foot tower.
Why so tall?
Because we want to reach as far as we can. This is what's called a low power station. You look at WESU here in town, they're running at over 1,000 watts, let's say. We're only going to be running at 100 watts. WESU can hit Springfield. We're going to be running 100 watts, so the higher we put the antenna, the farther we can reach.
Okay, all right.
So that's about the maximum that we can go for practical height is about 130 feet, 150 feet for our antenna. We'll also have the opportunity to use that antenna tower to put other services on. For example, fire, police could use that antenna as what we call a repeater. So signals can be further sent than they normally are. And we can rent those spaces out on that tower.
Okay. I chased you down this rabbit hole, and I didn't give you a chance to give contact information.
Okay.
So now we've added to that, if you're interested in also participating on the tower or being part of that group, as well as those willing to kind of think about funding, how do they get a hold of you, Rich?
Okay. It's easy. Lenoce, RLENOCE, at MxCC.edu.
Or they can call the main number
Or they
here
call the main number, just ask for me. Sure.
And that's 860-343-5800. It's pretty easy. All right. So now we've kind of covered programming, or at least in the future we'll be covering programming. But in the educational side of this, we're going to involve a lot of different students in this, both high school and also college. So with the program, what will students be able to gain in participating in this kind of venture? As either interns or as students?
Well, certainly our plan is to develop courses and opportunities for students who are interested in radio. We currently have a radio production course that we actually set up years ago and haven't really run because, of course, it's been waiting for a radio station. So we want to activate that course. We may activate an additional course. We're considering developing a whole sort of option within our program that would include audio, radio, maybe music recording, so that students could specialize in that kind of an area. And we're hoping that even though there's all kinds of other directions that media can go in, I think there's still a lot of students that are interested in radio, and so we're hoping to provide them some opportunities to be active in the radio station.
I was watching the Ringo Starr, Paul McCartney reunion the other night, and I was thinking as a child listening to the radio and hearing, the Beatles growing up, and that radio is a voice for young people, has always been a voice for young people, and I think that this radio station will be a voice for our students.
Right. Well, we are running out of time for this segment, and we're going to take a short break and be right back after these messages. Welcome back. I'm Marlene Olson with the Middlesex Moments radio show, and with me today is John Shafer and Rich Lenoce. Back in the beginning, I introduced Professor Shafer as president of the Jonas Center for Earth and Art, and there is a very interesting connection to Portland that's going on right now with the center, and that is to bring the airline trail to Portland. So, John, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, the last year, I would say the Jonas Center for Earth and Art, which is, just to explain, a local environmental advocacy organization that is really based in Middletown, but we cover the greater Middletown area. So we have become very interested in trying to develop the airline trail and help make connection to Portland. The airline trail, for people who may not be familiar with it, is used to be a rail line that ran actually from New York, New Haven, up to Boston. And it was an alternate route to the coastal rail line, and it was decommissioned in the, I think it was in the 1950s or something, somewhere around there. And the DEP, Department of Environmental Protection in Connecticut, has developed much of it, and they own a good section of the old line, and they've converted it to a multi-use bike trail, so which is very popular, widely used. And the trail runs to East Hampton currently. It actually starts, I think, up around Lebanon, and it's covering most of the northeastern section of the state. So we've identified some sections of the trail that are available to be developed.
And they're in Portland?
In Portland.
Yeah.
And actually the town of Portland has already been working on this. And so they had actually applied for a grant about 2 years ago in order to help fund the development of that. Unfortunately, at the time, because the trail had not been, there was no plans at that time to develop the trail from East Hampton to Portland, so there was a kind of a big gap. So the town was unsuccessful in getting that grant, and they also hadn't really developed their proposal well enough. So we've been working with them and trying, and also have coordinated efforts with East Hampton a little bit, and East Hampton has now applied for grants to complete the section that would go from downtown East Hampton, where the trail currently ends or begins, however you want to look at it, to the border of Portland. And then at the point where the border of Portland begins, and actually even going into East Hampton, there's a large section of property that's owned by Connecticut Light and Power, and they run power lines there, and that is run through the old airline rail section. And so they actually originally bought that when it was originally decommissioned, because they wanted to use it for their power lines in there, because they're running power lines that actually go over the river and help feed parts of central Connecticut there. So they have agreed to allow a use permit that would allow the trail to be developed and to use, and they've actually done this in other portions of the state. So we've identified the goal: if we can get the trail connected from East Hampton to Portland and take it all the way to downtown Portland, we'll actually be able to access the bridge. And in that case, it's opening it up for all of Middletown and really making it more than just a recreational tool, but almost an alternative form of transportation for people to be able to go from Middletown to other parts of the state and back to Middletown if they want.
I've traveled quite a bit of the airline trail. I absolutely love it. My family loves it. We love the kind of views that you can have, but some of the sections of the airline trail are highly developed with, paved paths and bridges. What kind of plans do they have for the Portland? Are there special features? Will they be going by any of the quarries?
Well, ultimately, and I should probably mention that Portland actually has some of the greatest challenges for the trail, and that's because there are sections of the trail that are privately owned. So even though I'm saying our goal would be to try to get to downtown Portland, at this point we can get to about halfway through Portland, which would get us to Route 17. That section is owned by CLNP, and they've already agreed to let that use. But from that point on, there are sections that are essentially privately owned, and that's the only place in the state actually where the airline trail is currently privately owned. But nevertheless, some of the property owners there are very against the idea of giving up their property. So part of what we're doing is we're researching it. We're trying to develop strategies for negotiating with the property owners. We're also looking for alternatives where we could go around them, and we're actually exploring some of those with the Department of Transportation, because there's a possibility we could develop a trail along Route 66 that would detour some of the privately owned sections. So there's a number of various possibilities that we might take, and it hasn't actually been settled. But I will say that because I have hiked the entire trail, actually all the way from Portland through to East Hampton, and it's actually usable, much of it already. You can hike it, and even sections where you could even ride your bike on it. And so our plan is that now that we have the permissions from CLMP, we can actually begin legally using that section of it. So even as soon as this spring or summer, without it being developed, we're going to start advocating and having events and things, and actually we're hoping to have some people involved in helping clean it up and get it positioned. And the more that people are using it, I think, then the more opportunities we have for full development of it, which would be doing some of the things you're talking about that they've done in East Hampton, where they have it. It's very nicely
Right.
not paved with blacktop necessarily, but the fine gravel and then have benches and
Right.
and places
Right.
where you can stop, because there are beautiful sections all along there, and there's a couple places where you get a beautiful view of the river. So it's really a great opportunity, I think.
Now, this first section, is it the section right up next to East Hampton, so that you could continue
Correct.
from East Hampton through the CLMP section of this?
Correct. Right.
Okay, so that's really doable.
Yes, no, that's the section, because I said all of that section is either owned by the Department of Environmental Protection, actually it's DEP, Environmental Protection and Energy, and or CLMP, and that goes into, like
Okay.
say, halfway through Portland.
All right.
So that section is very doable. I mean, it's still going to cost anywhere from $500 to $1 million to develop that section if you want to make it nice. But as
So
I said,
given that price tag, if someone wanted to help out with this, how would they donate? Both either time, like if they had Boy Scout leaders out there who are interested in having their troop work on the trail, or if you have a donor or a foundation that's interested in donating, how would they make contact with the Jonah Center or with
sure.
you?
Well, if actually we would probably say the easiest way is to go to our website, and we have contact information there, and we also we're actually working on developing some new materials on the airline trail that we haven't fully loaded yet. But the web address is www.jonahcenter.org. So it's pretty easy.
That's easy.
Yeah. So if they just you can just do a Google search actually.
Right, and they'll bring you right to that
Sure.
site.
Jonah
Okay.
Center for Earth and Art.
So we really didn't talk about the center itself. You want to give us a little background on that?
Well, sure. The Jonah Center actually has been active for I think about 10 years now, and we're very much a locally based organization, and that's kind of our emphasis, is we're trying to think globally, act locally,
Gotcha.
as they say, and we're essentially an environmental advocacy organization, but we're involved in everything from energy efficiency programs. We do educational programs on things like climate change, or we also do historical things on dams in Middletown. We're working on boat launches. We're working on water preservation, land preservation. And actually, one of the things that we've really been concentrating on, particularly in Middletown, is what we call the Complete Streets program, which is really trying to make Middletown more walkable and bikeable. So in addition to what we're doing in Portland, which actually is an outreach of this activity that we've been concentrating in Middletown, is really trying to create more opportunities for people to be able to walk and bike. There are 3 or 4 different bike trails that are being developed in Middletown, and we're also trying to work on improving sidewalks, and we've been doing traffic studies and things like that. And this is a direct partnership with the city of Middletown that we do. And so one of the things that we I say specialize in, we partnership with local organizations and towns, and we also are working with the state agencies in order to present the citizens' point of view, and make sure that these organizations are doing things in the best interest of the people in the greater Middletown area. So,
Oh, wow, that's quite a mission, and I hope you have lots of helping hands to make all of that happen. We're about to wrap up the show, and I want to give each of you a chance. Is there anything else you'd like our listeners to know?
Yes, well, the radio station will be part of the Center for New Media here at the college, a facility and a series of programs that we're developing on campus. We have our grand opening hopefully in September.
Okay.
And people can come here and see our new facilities and our radio station, all the exciting things that will be going on.
So for a student interested in the Center for New Media programs, how would they go about, giving us a sneak peek, if you would.
Well, they can go to our website, mxcc.edu/cnm.
CNM. Okay. I want to thank both of you for being on the show today. If you'd like to learn more about the college, you can go to our website. It's mxcc.edu. I'm Marlene Olson, wishing you a good day.